Kepler Johnson, a volunteer with the Nimitz Museum, and today is September 30th, 2000. I'm interviewing Mr. David Braden. This interview is taking place at the Fredericksburg High School in conjunction with the Pacific Air Operations Symposium, sponsored by the National Museum of the Pacific War. This interview is in support of the Center for Pacific War Studies, Archives for the National Museum of the Pacific War, Texas Parks and Wildlife, for the preservation of historical information related to this site. May I ask you, Mr. Braden, just to identify yourself, give us your name, address, date of birth, your parents' names, and where they came from, siblings, and so on.
I'm David Braden. I live at 3310 Fairmount, apartment 17E in Dallas, Texas. My parents were Lois and Darrell Braden, and they are natives of Dallas also. They're both deceased.
Do you have brothers and sisters? Or
Nope, I'm an only child.
Only child?
Yeah.
What was your educational background prior to entering the armed forces?
I'd had a year and a half of college, junior college at North Texas Agricultural College. I was studying to be an aeronautical engineer there and planned to go on to Texas A&M to get my degree. But it didn't work out that way. World War II came along. The day I was 18 years old, signed up for the Air Force Reserve and then was called up the following February.
And when was that? What date?
It was February 1943.
43 was when
Yeah.
you enlisted in
Yeah, I enlisted, signed up in 42, and then 43 they called. Recalled, right, into aviation cadets.
And that was in Dallas?
Yeah, in Dallas.
Where you entered the service? Where were you on December 7th, 1941? Do you remember?
Yeah, sure, I do remember exactly. NTAC was an all-ROTC school for the male students, and we had 2 battalions of infantry cadets. And on December the 7th, 1941, we were having a parade for all our parents and teachers and people in Arlington. They were all invited. And while we were on the field, and as we marched down and stood before the audiences gathered in the grandstands there at the football stadium, they announced that America was at war and Pearl Harbor had been attacked. You could hear the mothers in the audience gasp,
Yeah.
because we all had rifles on our shoulders. We were all in uniform. They thought we'd just march off into boxcars and be gone, but it didn't work out that way.
You had a little bit of a
Yeah,
respite before you ended up going. Well, you're joining the Army or the Army Air Corps.
Army Air Corps, right.
Army Air Corps was the way you entered the service.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And you did this because of a love for flying. Had you ever flown?
Well, I'd never really flown, and I never had a flight in an airplane but one time. But when I was 12 years old, I had an uncle that was in the old Army Air Corps at Randolph Field. He took me out, and they were flying those little pea shooter planes, and I always wanted to fly. So when the opportunity came along, I really was studying aeronautical engineering. Hadn't got very far in school, obviously, but that's what I was planning to do with my life. And I'd always planned that I would go into the service and learn to fly and have that as a part of my career, really.
Would you describe your training that you received from after you
Right.
first entered?
Well, the first thing that happened to me was they sent me to the University of Tennessee, and I'd had almost 2 years of engineering, so they didn't keep me there but 2 months. They called up everybody, every college trainee in the Air Force Reserve all at once, all of the United States. I didn't have any place to put them, so they sent us to basic training at Shepherd Field, and then they deployed us to college training detachments all over the United States. And they sent me to the University of Tennessee and kept me there for 2 months. Then I left there and went to classification at Nashville, Tennessee to be classified navigator or pilot, bombardier, etc. And it almost broke my heart. I was classified as a navigator because I've got a problem with my eyes. I'm nearsighted in one eye and farsighted in the other. And essentially they said you're cross-eyed. Well, they need pilots so bad at that particular time, because they're all getting killed over in England, that they sent me back for another examination. It was lengthy, but they said, no, you can't fly an airplane. What kind of eyesight you got? So all my buddies shipped out and went to Maxwell Field for training, and I had to stay there in classification center, taking PT 2 times a day and tearing up coal boxes for 2 or 3 months. And then I went to Selman Field, Monroe, Louisiana, navigation school, pre-flight. Finished pre-flight, and then they sent me to aerial gunnery school down in Florida at Fort Myers. And I came back wearing gunner's wings and went into advanced navigation, which was I forget exactly how long the course was, at least 3 months or so. Graduated there, became a commissioned officer, and I was one of the top people in my class, probably because of my engineering background, and which means I could add and subtract well. So they sent me to Boca Raton, Florida for a month in top secret training to become a radar bombardier and to use that radar as navigation. And when I say top secret, they really meant it. Our classrooms were surrounded by a barbed wire fence with a armed guard on the entry to the little compound where they were. Did that flying out over the ocean for the first time in Cuba. Then they sent me to, I had a month's leave. They sent me back to Clovis, New Mexico, where I picked up a combat crew, Lieutenant Norman Westervelt, and we trained there with B-29s. I'd never seen a B-29, didn't even know anything about it because it, again, was a secret airplane at that time. Anytime you flew a B-29 anywhere, the crew was armed and posted a guard on it if they had to make an emergency landing or anything. So, trained there until, I guess, late November of 1944. To Kearney, Nebraska, to pick up a brand new airplane and fly it overseas to Saipan. And arrived in Saipan in December as the first replacement crew for the 870th Squadron, the 497th Bombardment Group, 73rd Wing. 73rd Wing had been there since November. They flew their first mission to Tokyo November 24th, 1944. And the results that they were having were very, very poor, and because they discovered the jet stream, and the jet stream, B-29s always flew across the target from the west to the east because they couldn't fly into the jet stream upstream. Jet stream was 220 to 250 knots. We'd go across the target, and I flew my first mission in very early February. I said arrived in December. I didn't arrive in January. And flew my first mission, which was a high altitude mission to Tokyo. And the jet stream was behind us, and we were scooting across Tokyo at about 500-600 miles an hour. And the northern bomb sight wouldn't keep up with it. And we not only missed the target, I'm not even sure we hit Tokyo. And so that was the beginning of my career as a navigator.
It sounds like you got some pretty high-tech and advanced training because you're going into B-29.
Well, the B-29 was a high-tech airplane. It was a superb airplane. We had a lot of problems initially with overheating engines and that sort of thing. The problem which, toward the end of the war, had pretty well flattened out, but they had to redesign the cowl flaps on the thing because losing engines was very common. But our results were awful insofar as high altitude strategic bombing was concerned.
You talked about the northern bomb sight and its limitations and so on. What was speed? Was that the problem?
Speed was the problem.
You went too fast.
Just to show you how big a problem it was, everybody said, well, why don't you go fly from the west to the east? And so one observation plane tried that one day, and they found out they were going 3 miles an hour backwards in a B-29. So that didn't work either. That all changed when Curtis LeMay was appointed general of the 21st Bomber Command, and he came to Guam and located his headquarters there. He saw the poor results we were having, and he tried some experimentations. He was a very innovative guy, and he was a tough guy. And he mixed on a particular mission, he mixed incendiary bombs with high explosive bombs. And he liked the results he saw, and so he decided mission was a huge success. The crews they were kind of groggy when they came out of briefing, and they said, you know, we're going to be the American kamikazes. We're going to run and shoot us crazy. And we got to the airplanes. The airplanes been painted black overnight on the bottom, so they wouldn't reflect searchlights. Instead of any ammunition in our guns, we carried ammunition for the tail gun, but nowhere else. The gunners were issued what's called rope, which was an inch-wide strip of tinfoil, anywhere from 100 to 400 feet long, and would confuse the Japanese radar and searchlights. It also confused us because the searchlights were all over the sky. When we got to Tokyo, you know, some 6.5, 7 hours after taking off at dusk, we were in for a very exciting time. As we approached the city, we could see that it was on fire because the Pathfinders flew in an hour before us, set fires on the four corners of the bombing area, and everybody came in and dropped in on that. But as we got closer, as more and more planes had dropped their bombs in there, a firestorm started. And before it was over, I think we burned out 32 square miles of that city, and it was like looking into the mouth of hell from where we were. It was very frightening because airplanes took off and flew singly, and we were all up there in the sky together. We couldn't see each other. Nobody had any lights on. So the searchlights would catch an aircraft right next to you. You didn't even know the guy was there. Every once in a while, two of them would run together, and that would be the kind of crashes we'd have, but we didn't have any damage from flak or fighters or anything like that. Then we flew into this huge black cloud of smoke that was so dense it was totally black within the airplane. You could smell the smoke because we weren't pressurized. The updrafts from the heat of the city through the airplanes all over the sky. One guy even got his B-29 turned upside down, was able to correct it. When we got back home, to show you how low we were flying, one guy had a Tokyo newspaper in his engine nacelle that had drifted up and been scooped up as we went over the city. So that was the beginning of those fire raids. It killed some 83,000 Japanese. 1 million were left homeless and really flattened 32 square miles of the city. LeMay was ecstatic. He ordered 4 more of those missions immediately to every Nagoya, Osaka, Kobe, and Tokyo, and they got the full treatment. And then we kept it up until at the end of that period, those 4 missions, we were out of incendiary bombs and Saipan, we could see it, and we got, permission from the tower to come in for making an emergency landing, which we did. We bypassed everybody, landed, got halfway down the runway, and all 4 engines quit, and they had to haul the airplane off with a tractor. And I got out and kissed the ground, and that's it. End of my war.
Yeah. Well, let me go back.
Yeah, that's a long answer, wasn't it?
No, that's fine. But I would like to go back
Yeah,
and
sure.
maybe pick up on
Okay.
a few other things. You mentioned that you picked up your new B-29 in Nebraska, was
Yeah,
that right?
yeah, that's it.
Now, did you fly that aircraft to Saipan?
Flew that aircraft to Saipan, and then
What kind of a route did you take?
well, we flew to Hawaii first, and then to, well, on the way to Squadron where we were going, we had an engine problem, and so we landed on Johnston Island, which is a tiny little speck out there, you know where that is. And, I think we were the first B-29 ever landed there. And we landed okay, we were worried about being able to take off, but anyway, we got our engine repaired, and we did take off, we cleared it, and flew on to Squadron, and then on to Saipan. So it was a really
hop,
three,
skip, and
four,
jump
yeah,
type of
yeah,
thing.
legs.
Not like the later days of air refueling.
No, no.
Any of that.
It's
What was
simple.
what was the range that the plane was designed to have?
Well, planes, well, it had a ferry range, I think of 4,150 miles, something like that, but, you know, when you load it, it would make, 3,000 mile round trip, and that was just about it. Or maybe they just weaned us on gasoline. I don't think we ever had more than 20 minutes worth of extra gasoline.
Now you were in Saipan then
Yeah.
from January of '45 until the end of the war.
Yeah, end of the war, right.
What was it like living in Saipan? I mean, that had been a
Well,
subject of
you know,
some pretty bad battles.
if you judge it by England, it was pretty free. I mean, we lived in Quonset huts, and the officers in Quonset huts, and the enlisted men in tents, and but they were floored tents. We had a mess hall. We didn't have any refrigeration. We got a beer ration, but no ice. First beer I ever drank in my life was hot. So when I got a cold one, I really liked it. You know, it's very warm there, and we dressed in khakis, and people took knives and cut off their pants and cut off their shirt sleeves, and all of us we were told, and it proved to be true, that if we went down over Japan, we'd be declared war criminals and executed. And I had friends that had that experience and didn't get executed because the war was over by then, before they got around to them. But we wore no identification as whether we were officers or anything like that, except our dog tags. And on missions, we dressed informally because our planes were heated and pressurized. But when we got to the target, we put on flak suits and flak jackets and all that kind of stuff, tin helmets, put on goggles and oxygen masks, depressurized the aircraft. So our living conditions were. We had no running water. The hot water we had, they just hung a lister bag out in the sunshine, and that took care of the hot water. And your shaving kit was your helmet, put in a board, and I had latrines. And but one day we didn't have was the weather they had in England, when they flew up off those airfields. That was simple. I didn't get in at all.
Did from the 6 or 7 or 8 months that you were there, did things get any better after you've been there for a while? Did they bring in more
No,
refinements?
No, there were never any more refinements. I'll tell you one thing, we had, in our mess hall, we had a big stack of ice cream mix, but we had no way to freeze ice cream, so we couldn't give it to you. And so we'd take it up, we'd borrow an ammunition can or something like that, and we would take a lot of water, you just mix it with water, stir it up, and make ice cream. So we were at altitude, you know, 40 degrees below outside, and we mixed that ice cream up on the way home after we'd flown a mission. Depressurize the aircraft, put it out into Bombay, and freeze the ice cream. And that's probably the most expensive ice cream ever made in the world. But
was your food pretty crude too? I mean, were you on sea rations? And
food was terrible. When I got we were on the side of the wind island where the wind wasn't, and we made a raft out there and anchored it off a reef. And so every afternoon when I didn't have any other flying duties, and I had no duties except to fly, so we went to swim out there in the ocean, and that was our recreation.
You didn't have organized PT in those days?
No, we didn't have any PT at all.
To keep people in shape or anything like that. Did your crew have any special assignments? Your aircraft, you were with the same aircraft that entire
No, let me tell
7
you,
months?
when our third mission, the crew that I went over with, Lieutenant Westerville's crew, our third mission, we got shot up over Tokyo at high altitude, and we turned off the target. We're coming back, had a little camera hatch in the back where they would take pictures of the bombing run. And the radar man would close that hatch. We called up and he said to the pilot, he said, "Sir, that we've got gasoline streaming all along the bottom of the plane." So we knew that we were going to ditch for a long, long time from that point, but we were losing fuel at a rapid rate. And I heard him talking this morning about self-sealing tanks. We had self-sealing tanks, but ours must have been ripped in some way by any aircraft fire. Anyway, we knew that we were going to ditch, and we always left the target, even when we flew at high altitude, we always left the target, flew home alone, gauge your own gas that way. And so we started to lighten the plane. We threw out everything we could to make the plane lighter, so we increased our gas mileage. We threw out the northern bomb sight, but it wasn't worth a damn anyway. And we were about every 20 minutes, as a navigator, we would radio our position, so we always knew exactly where we were, and they knew where we were back in Saipan. They charted our course, and then when we did get ready to ditch, we waited too long. The engine started sputtering, so the pilot said we were going down, so he went down, and you landed into the waves, and as you come across where you lift your nose up and skim the top and drag your tail. Well, we waited too late, and we had no power. We ran into a wave about 15 foot high going about 100 miles an hour, just crushed the nose of B-29. It killed the airplane commander, the Bombardier, broke the back of the central fire control man. Everybody got beat up real good. So we got out, and 9 of us got in life rafts. Another plane from our squadron had heard our distress call, and they came over and they found us and gave our position a double check and dropped us a Gibson Girl emergency radio, which we'd gotten off without it. And we managed to get our rafts together, and we lashed them together, but every time we go over one of these waves, well, the rubber would rub, and they'd go, we knew we were going to rub him too. We were going to have to cut apart. We didn't want to do that. Night was coming on, and it was getting dusk. And just before it got, well, it wasn't really dark yet, just getting ready to get dark. We heard this sputtering noise and looked up, and it was a Navy PBY gunboat. They're an air sea rescue, and these guys are Navy guys who've been flying out there for 18 months, flying air sea rescue, and they'd never found anybody. So they said, we're going to come down and get those guys. So they did come down and picked us all up. We had a devil of a time getting a man with a broken back in the plane. Got in, we were all crowded in there. Now, I was sitting up between the pilot and the co-pilot. They positioned us around the plane. It's kind of a channel there, something I was sitting on. And we got ready to take off, and my day had been kind of rough. I'd been up about 24 hours, and I was in a state of shock, and I was cold and hungry, and I'd been shot at and hit. And I handled it pretty well. I was kind of proud of myself. And all of a sudden I looked up and I was scared to death. And the plane was getting ready to take off, and it had windshield wipers that never working. I'd never flown in an airplane that flew so slow it had windshield wipers on it. But anyway, he bounced that thing all over the sky, and we got off, and flew us back to Saipan, and took us into the hospital and ambulances, and they gave us cigarettes and steak and eggs, which is nicotine and cholesterol. And I think I thought about that later and said, well, they said, well, we didn't get you today, so get you set up for it later in life. So anyway, spent a night in the hospital. Next day they sent me back to Squadron, and 2 days before we ditched our aircraft, another replacement crew that come in the same time we had. We were friends, we knew each other. They had ditched, and they'd lost their navigator, their flight engineer, and one of their gunners. And so 3 of us filled those positions on that crew. 2 others, and tail gunner and the radio operator on another crew, and airplane co-pilot went on another one. Anyway, so within a week, I was back in the sky flying with this crew as a replacement navigator, and flew 32 more missions with them.
And you were with them the rest of your time?
The rest of the time.
What kind of memories do you have of your friends, your buddies that you made in the overseas location? Do you have experiences that kind of have been retained in your memory?
I have a lot of memories of things that happened to us there, and I have a lot of regrets. When we first were flying, until General May got there, and really until March, we didn't have any limitation as to the number of missions that we would fly. They had in Europe, they started out flying at 25, you could go home, 30, you could go home. As the odds got better, and we didn't have any of that, and we were very demoralized because of that, and because of the fact we weren't getting anything, we weren't getting any good with our bombing strategy. And I don't know what it was, but it was like we have an attitude, we're just going to keep going back to target 357 in Tokyo, which is a Fukushima aircraft factory that we kept missing, and we're going to keep doing that till we drop, you know. And a lot of our losses were all during the months of January, February, heavy losses, and that's just demoralizing because we were close. We only had 11 planes, something like that in our squadron, and I came home and I didn't have a single guy's address. I didn't have anybody's home address. I just had my memories of them, and here, I did know their hometowns, but as the computers came in, I finally made that contact, and I found my engineer, the original co-pilot, one of the gunners, and the CFC man who got his back broken, and the co-pilot on the second crew, and the airplane commander that I flew with the second time. I had visited with the first tail gunner, and I visited with my airplane commander of the second plane, who was now deceased. But I made that contact, and we talked on the telephone, and every year Christmas we got each other there.
So you were able to get in touch years later?
Got in touch with him, and right there's our flight engineer, cranky old bastard, that was 28 years old. The rest of us were 20, I think. He was regular Army, and he had been in the regular Air Corps, Army Air Corps before the war, and as an enlisted man, and he was trained as an airplane mechanic, and he was good at it. And he's the only flight engineer that I know that became a commissioned officer by virtue of the fact that he was that good, and he really knew his stuff. And he is still bitching about that last mission when we didn't land on Evo and the engines kicked out on the runway. Every year at Christmas time he writes me a letter complaining about that.
You mentioned General LeMay and how well he was thought of, and he was perceptive about strategy and tactics.
We called him Old Iron Pants because he was a tough cookie. I mean, General Curtis LeMay was the George Patton of the Air Force, and but we respected him tremendously, particularly when he put us on the path to winning the war, not a question.
He was what, 2-star general at the time?
I think so.
Probably.
I think so.
What about your other senior officers?
We were close.
Squadron commanders,
We're close to him, Lieutenant Colonel Tricky, but I don't know what happened to him. Our
like there was animosity about the senior commanders because you were being ineffective for a long period?
No, I mean, we figured it out pretty quick, just didn't know exactly what to do with it. It never occurred to anybody to take an airplane that had been designed, like the B-29 had to do high altitude strategic bombing, carry 10 tons of bombs for 3,000 miles. Never thought that it would not be able to hit the targets, you know. But there was a reason. As long as that jet stream was there, and it was very erratic. You know, it wasn't always at the same altitude, wasn't always the same speed. We did fly some altitude missions that were successful, but I think LeMay figured out that there were only 7 days a month that we were able to do visual bombing, so we had to bomb by radar, which is not nearly as accurate as visual bombing with bomb sight.
The Japanese defenses that you ran into were strictly high altitude anti-aircraft fire. You didn't have fighter.
Right. No, we had a lot of fighter attacks, but by April the 7th, the Marines had secured Iwo Jima, and we got B-51 fighter escort, and I owned that particular mission, and we had a real air battle. I think we had something like 85 fighter attacks, and one engine was shot out, and it shot out our gun wiring. Also, did all right. Also shot part of our control cables out, and we were in kind of bad shape. And Bombardier looked up, and here came this. We were into Ramus. You know, when they shot up all their ammunition, they were ready to die for the Emperor. So we snuggled up as close as we could to our wingman, and if you know anything about B-29, it had a central fire control gunner who controlled every gun except the tailgun. And we had a series of switches up there, so our guns were out, but with 3 other guys in our formation there, they were able to level 30 50 caliber machine guns that were coming fire on this plane coming in. And we were looking at him, and this all of a sudden there was a big poof, and he was gone. Disintegrated, yeah, disintegrated. But after April, we didn't experience much fighter opposition at all. And the flak that we got in those fire raids was not that good at all. The bigger danger was just running into each other.
Because of the lack of visibility?
Yeah, lack of visibility. Couldn't see each other.
And you didn't have air-to-air radar available?
No. Well, as a matter of fact, when the first missions I flew up until about March, I guess, I was doing, every time we come back at night, I was doing celestial navigation, and that's hard duty, you know. Celestial navigation is about like Christopher Columbus was used to doing it, except that we were going 250, 300 miles an hour, which meant that maybe after you took your celestial shots, about an hour later, you find out where you might have been. And so there's judgment, and you might have been here, you might have been there, you kind of draw a line between them, and it's a judgment call. So the navigator was working all the time, and you know, I liked that, I enjoyed that, because next to the pilot, I was the most popular man on the aircraft. And you know, you see all that water.
Just because you got them home.
Yeah, see all that water for 14, 15 hours, you know that you got home somehow or other. And that was kind of the way it was until we got Loran, which, you know, is a method of radio navigation. And I felt like I died and gone to heaven. But there were some times when, you know, if I could have gone to a Radio Shack like today and bought a ground position indicator for $150, I'd give my right arm for one.
That's before satellites.
Yeah, right.
In the, 2 years approximately you spent in service?
Yeah, no, about nearly 3, 2 years now.
Most of that in the States, but
Yeah,
7 or 8 months of it.
I think my training was a year and 11 months that I spent in training altogether.
Well, part of that was because of the sophisticated equipment that you were
That
ready to
and
fly. reflect back, and I'm sure you have at other times, do you have a most memorable moment of your time in the service?
Yeah, I guess I remember the ditching more than any other one. It was a real experience, going to shock and then to be found, best friends dying, something happened before.
Did you ever see a USO show? Did you ever see the USO?
Oh, yeah.
Saipan?
So on Saipan, we had Dennis Day out there one time. He was with the old Jack Benny show, and God, he was funny as he could be, even though he was a comedian in addition to being a singer. And we had others, and I don't particularly remember any of them. We had a theater for movies. We went to movies every night. It always rained about the first 15 minutes of movies. So you brought your raincoat, sat on a movie theater called Goat Gulch, and it was down the side of a hill with oil barrels. Sat on oil barrels on your raincoat, brought you your helmet to wear during the rain, and a flashlight so you could find your way home. And while you're waiting for the movie to start, it'd be getting dusk, and all the B-29 mine layers off of Tinian would be taken off to do their night mine laying, and inevitably one or two of them would go in the drink, and they were tough runners. And so we had free entertainment of seeing other guys getting killed while we were waiting to see the movie. But we did have a little entertainment.
Your own experience with hospitalization was simply an overnight kind of to check you out and make sure you had
Clean sheets one night. I still remember that.
And that was at Evo, we said?
No, Saipan.
On Saipan.
Yeah. Incidentally, that
Was there a field hospital there, or?
Oh, there's a regular base hospital, wooden building. I landed on the mission I told you about where we had B-51 escort got shot up like that. We landed on Eagle the first time, and before the war was over, landed there 3 other times. We landed on Eagle 4 times. Every time in a life-threatening condition, he was shot up for thinking we're not going to have enough fuel to make it home. And I owe my life to the United States Marine Corps. But I was in the Navy, picked me up out of the ocean.
What kind of treatment did you get in those hospitals? Was it good care? Or
Oh yeah,
experienced people?
I just cut up a little bit. They gave me cholesterol and cigarettes. So they always gave you a shot of whiskey, when you came in from mission. I don't know whether that was traditional or what, but it didn't seem to help anything much. But we always took it.
I think you mentioned earlier that you were on a mission or returning from a mission or practice bombing when you heard that the bomb had been dropped on August the 6th in Hiroshima. And before actually the Japanese surrendered or indicated willingness to surrender on the 14th of August. Where were you then? Were you in the air? Or?
On the 14th of August, no. I hadn't left then. I was awaiting orders. They began to ship us home immediately, and of course, since I had completed my mission before the peace was declared, my papers were being processed, and I was assigned to this sounds crazy. I was assigned to fly a war-weary B-29 home.
had quite a party, complete with a brass band.
Yeah, yeah.
The European war.
It didn't last very long, but we were elated. We knew we were doing good, and we expected all kind of reinforcements and that sort of thing, and we knew we'd have the ability to do the 1,000 plane raids. As a matter of fact, none of us could see how Japan could hold out much longer.
Did you see European units coming out in your area?
No, not as units, but a lot of our senior airplane commanders had flown a tour in Europe. For example, the first mission they flew, Major Morgan, who flew the Memphis Belle, was the co-pilot to Lieutenant General Rosie O'Donnell on the first mission that they flew. So we had some very experienced airplane commanders, and then we had a bunch of kids like me that made good grades in school and thought they could handle it all.
Well, when you got back to the Tinker into Dallas, this was what date?
It was, Tinker was in Oklahoma City. Tinker
Yeah, and then to Dallas.
Yeah, and then I got to Dallas. I don't remember, it was in September.
In September.
Yeah.
And your parents weren't expecting you when you got home, but I take it they were there to greet you.
Oh, they were delighted, and they loaned me their car at 2 o'clock in the morning, and I went over to my girlfriend's house in Arlington, about 25, 30 miles away, and she was having a slumber party with a bunch of girls, and they all had their hair in curlers, and I still remember that. She was terribly embarrassed, but she married me.
She probably remembers.
She's here
too,
today.
huh?
Yeah, 54 years since we've been married.
What was her reaction when she saw you?
Well, she was ecstatic because I looked so good. I'd slimmed down, and I was brown as a baseboard over there from tropical sun, and I probably never looked better in my life.
It's a healthy
Yeah.
age, isn't it? Those cover the things that I was particularly interested in trying to find out about. I don't know whether you have any other recollections that might be of interest. You understand that the purpose of this is to get people's memories and recollections and even opinions about their service and about the conduct of the war into our archives for future research.
I have one thing that I learned mostly by reading and had only some exposure to, and that was that the B-29, which we had a lot of engine trouble with, and we aborted maybe 3 or 4 missions, but caused a lot of crashes in early training and that sort of thing. The 58th wing bore the brunt of that, and they were the wing that was sent to India and then to Chengdu, China. And they had horrible living conditions and were never very successful. And they located in India until they could move them to Chengdu, China, which gave them an opportunity to head to Kyushu and bomb there. And this is a story that's in books, but it's been very impressive to me because we later had one of these crews come into our squadron. I had a lot of respect for their navigator because navigational problems out of China were awful. He talked about flying the hump. They moved to China and then found they had no way to get gasoline to the airplanes except to fly it over the hump. And ATC planes were not, they didn't have enough planes to do it, so they equipped B-29s with tanks in each bomb bay. They'd fly over to India and get the gasoline and then fly it over the hump to Chengdu. The problem was that they figured out finally that for every gallon of gas they could haul over the hump in a B-29, it took 2 gallons of gas for the plane to fly. And if they had headwinds, sometimes they'd expend 12 gallons to fly 1. So that didn't work very well. And the story of their famous first mission to the home island of Japan was to bomb the Imperial Iron and Steel Works in Yawata. And they flew this mission, and it was a mess. It started out with 97 planes, and only 47 of them found the target, and 7 ditched, and 7 crashed, and 1 got shot down. It was a mess. But in the United States, the press was just ecstatic that we had at last reached the mainland of Japan. And this, what, a year and a half, 2 years after the Doolittle raid. General Arnold, he was so enthused, he wired General Wolfe and said, "Fly missions the length and breadth of Japan." And General Wolfe wired back to General Arnold. He said, "General, we've flown 700,000 gallons of gasoline over the hump to fly this mission. It takes 8,800 gallons of gas to fly 10-ton bomb load to Japan for 1 airplane." And he said, in 20 hours. He said, "I've got 5,000 gallons left." He said, "You've asked me to run a 100-yard dash when I can barely crawl." So General Arnold called General Wolfe back to Washington, promoted him, put him in a desk job, and sent Curtis LeMay. And that's how we got Curtis LeMay. And that's a true story.
That's interesting.
So that's a thing that it amazes you that the cost and expense of all of this, and a lot of it didn't work, and they just had to find out the hard way. Just like it didn't know, from what I understand, the infantry didn't know about the hedgerows when they attacked, the battles in Europe. And some guy that drove a tank and was a mechanic back home invented a thing to spike through on the front of a tank. So
when you were on Saipan, I'm sure you had plenty of news on that. Did you hear news of yourselves? Did you get Stars and Stripes coverage of your own missions, or
not anything much.
Armed Forces radio, anything like that?
Well, we had Armed Forces radio, but I don't remember that. I was never very impressed by it.
They didn't talk about your
No.
wing?
Not that I know about anyway.
So you were kind of local heroes yourselves.
Well, we didn't
You
think of
knew
ourselves
who
as
you were.
heroes. We thought of ourselves as guys that we had to get a job done. We fly 35 missions, you could go home. That was it. As a matter of fact, when you're 19, 20 years old, you don't think about stuff like that. You don't really have to. I don't ever remember being particularly scared or frightened. I guess you worry a little bit, but I couldn't do my job or worry about going on a mission. Going on a mission was an opportunity because it was another one, like a convict's marking the X on the wall. Another thing behind you.
You've had a pretty distinguished career since you came back after the war in the civilian world. Have you done any writing?
Yeah.
About your experiences?
I've written all of those war experiences. One day I got to think about my parents, how little I knew about them. But my father had an aunt who had done some research, genealogical research. And I didn't want to do genealogy, but I did read this and found out a little bit about his background. I knew my mother and father had known each other since they were babies. And I knew about their marriage, and they went to California and then came back in a Model T and all that. But I decided I would leave a record for my grandkids. And so I started a book called Lifelines. Never any intention to publish it. I just wanted to leave a record for my family. So I started back before, writing about my parents and what I knew about them, and then brought in my own childhood and everything. By the time I got into World War II and I was 21 years old, I'd written 357 pages. And so I went down to Kinko's, that's my publisher, and had 3 copies bound for each one of my daughter's families and gave it to them at Christmas. And I started on the rest of my life, and I think I'm now in the 60s, but I can't do this regularly because I'm still working in a capacity as a construction arbitrator, which means I don't work all the time. I just have cases. But I think maybe I'll get through this year, get the rest of it, and then I guess I'll
your experiences with your children, your daughters, you say?
No, we never talked about this in the family until I wrote this thing, and then I got called down here in 1994, and participated in the symposium then, and I enjoyed it. And then I came back for the one where they had the prisoner of war symposium, enjoyed that, and then they had the parade in Fredericksburg. End of World War II, last parade, World War II or something like that.
95.
95.
Yeah, it's a B+.
Okay. I came down, and my whole family came, 8 grandkids, all my sons-in-laws and my wife. And so Fisk handed another B-29 guy and I were riding in the truck down Main Street. And all of a sudden Fisk says, look, Dave. And there's my whole family, and they're holding up this huge sign about that high, about, as long as this room, in red, said, Dave Braden, our hero. And it's on the front page of the Fredericksburg paper. And
that's a nice experience.
oh, it was terrific. Took my kids out to the airfield, and they saw all the airplanes and all that. Couldn't get 2 of them out of the helicopter. They were so interested in that. But there was a PBY there. They got to see what a PBY looked like. Big grandpa up out of those. So that was. And then I kind of got on a mini speaking circuit every once in a while. I get asked to talk, tell them a little bit about it. So that's the reason I have a little bit of it in my mind.
Well, I think your recollection is, your recall is amazing, that long ago to
Yeah.
remember.
Well, it's because I
dates.
started thinking, it amazed me that I had no notes or anything, but I just, as I wrote, I would think about it. So, pretty much in chronological order, better than what I remember.
Well, it all gets there.
Yeah.
And all the information's there, and the people that will use this are people doing research and studies and things of that kind.
Just people that
And
are here
people just
today.
interested in history.
Interested in history, yeah. That was the thing that made me the first one of these I came to, that a lot of young people there because they're interested in history. I met a guy this morning, it's a dentist, flew in from Aspen, Colorado, and he's a little younger than me, I guess, but he's retired, but he says, I'm just interested in history. And I got a friend out there in the 15th Air Force, and he's the same way. Every time they mentioned somebody's name that he knew in some connection to Europe, he so started telling me another war story.
Well, I want to thank you for participating with us
Thank you,
today.
Kevin. If you're an amateur at this, you just got me started talking. You said that guy was vaccinated with a photograph.
Well, that's largely what we want to do, is just